Hey, what's up, guys? It's Art Book Addiction here, and we're here with a new artist journey video. So today we're going to be talking about music. Okay, so last week I went to see Muse live. Right? If you don't know about Muse, right? They are a great rock band. I think maybe alt rock. I don't really know the genres. I'm not too familiar with that, but I really enjoyed the show, and it's made me want to speak on music and its importance to art, right? And how, basically art and music can influence each other, you know what I mean? And how it's, great for you to have music in your studio, and things like that, right? So that's what we talk about today. But before we start the video, please hit that like, hit that subscribe, check out my prints and Patreon if you want to support the channel, consider becoming a channel member. With that, let's get into it. So, music. I would say that music is probably the most engaged art form there is, right? I would say even more than movies or anything, right? Because music is listened to every day, right? Music is infinitely repeatable, right? And despite everything, music has this eternal value that just keeps, the more you listen, the more you appreciate it, right? I was always, I'm a kind of person who can listen to a song on repeat multiple times, right? And it's not really a problem for me, right? And I know some people get tired of that. It's it eventually becomes like a variety kind of thing, right? But I would say that just on the whole, music is the most engaged with medium, right? When it comes to the art forms, music is clearly ahead of everyone else, by a huge margin, right? And that's because it's very nice, you know what I mean? It feels great, you know what I mean? Music can really change your mood, your vibe, right? What you're feeling at a certain moment, right? Music has that beautiful what do you call it, a beautiful way to pierce your soul, right? While also just being almost mundane, right? Music could just be in the background, you know what I mean? That's what's really great about it. And especially for artists, okay? Artists, we need music, okay? Right? Just to be fair. I used to subscribe to the belief that you should draw and paint in silence, right? But after I did that for a while, I just felt like when you're in silent mode, it's just hard to get in the flow, right? It's just hard to achieve that flow state when you are just either listening to a podcast or you're just listening to nothing, right? Or a video, right? I feel like these videos, podcasts and stuff like that, they're very distracting for the artist, right? Because we, especially with something visual, we want to look at it, right? And that makes us not look at the art, right? And what's in focus, what's in front of us, right? But music allows us to have something to listen to, something in the background that creates a rhythm, right? I really enjoy that music creates that rhythm within you, right? So that rhythm can come out of you, right? So what does that mean, right? Basically, okay, for me, I'm a person who stands while I paint, right? And when you're standing and you're listening to music, you're listening to jams that you enjoy, right? You start feeling the you know what I mean? You're into it, right? And suddenly, when you're in that rhythm, I feel like you make better choices when it comes to your work, right? The line comes down a little bit smoother, right? Little miracles are much more likely to happen, right? Because you're in the flow, you're making moves, you're in the rhythm of the thing, right? And when you're in the rhythm, I feel like you feel the rhythm of not just the song or your painting, right? But you're in tune with the rhythm of the earth, right? Of the spiritual plane, right? And this allows one to get into that mindset, right, of being in the rhythm, right? And when you're in the rhythm, like I said, good shit happens, man. Good shit happens. That's where things start to really play out well. Okay. Um, I feel like when you're starting your art session, you you're not really in the rhythm yet, right? And so you have maybe a couple things that you do when you before you start that get you into that rhythm. Okay. um and like music is like, like literal rhythm. You know what I mean? It's like actual something that like has a rhythm that could put you into it, right? And rhythm is extremely important in art, right? So like that's why music can play such a huge role in that, right? uh some people, okay, so I've had friends who told me that, let's say like they're doing like a Western piece or something like that, right? They'll listen to like Western pieces or like sorry, Western music, right? And like to get them in that mood, right? Like maybe like, like those, Sergio Leone, like music from like from the Good and the Bad, the Ugly films, right? Like that music has a certain energy into it, right? And then you could take that and transfer it to, a piece, right? I don't necessarily do that, but I think it would help other people in that regard, right? For me, I just listen to like my playlist, right? For me, it's about like how quickly can I get into the flow state so that I can start making the magic happen, right? And so for me, like I put on my tunes, right? I have a set start thing, whatever. Like I have a song where I start and it continues a playlist, right? Basically, you want something that you could just push on repeat, right? Like, for like my songs, I have a huge long playlist that I just keep adding to, right? And then I'll find sections that I like, and then I have a certain start song in that section, and then I boom right there, right? But the idea is that you don't spend too much time choosing what your playlist is, right? It's almost like a workout playlist, right? When you start working out, you just press a thing into the workout, right? You want to approach with your art the same way, okay? You want to put on the music, you're in the rhythm, you're in the thing, okay? And you're trying to establish that flow state, right? The flow state is like, you know extremely important to your work, because it really means that you're in tune with the rhythm, in tune with your work, right? And you're feeling something, and that's, like I said, things come out good, right? Like all of it is to induce flow state, okay? The music is not necessarily that important to the piece, you know what I mean? Like I've listened to, like, music that's completely opposite of like the subject matter. It's like oh, like this one, like Pretty Lady, right? And like maybe, I'm listening to like a hardcore like metal music, you know what I mean, right? It doesn't necessarily need to coincide with the theming of your piece, right? Though you could, like I said, if you want to, right? Not necessary for me, not necessary for anyone, honestly. What I really want to emphasize is that the music isn't important as the rhythm is, right? To get you in the flow. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to really emphasize here. The music is just a means to an end, okay? Right? Of course, music is great because it's very inspirational, right? And like I'll talk more on that in terms of like an inspiration thing later. But when it comes to like the practical everyday use for an artist, it's literally just to induce flow state, okay, right? And that's not a bad thing, you know what I mean? Because of course, who doesn't like listening to tunes while they work, you know what I mean? I just thought about it. I'm like, my advice is actually kind of counterintuitive to my channel, right? Because like my whole channel is here to give artists something to listen to while they work, right? So whatever. I'm here to tell you the truth, right? I'm trying to tell you how I feel about the thing. So who gives a shit? You know what I mean? But like I said, You want to listen, music is just so good to listen to when you work, right? It's fantastic, you know. Um, when it comes to, like I was saying, like what I was saying before, inspiration. Okay, music is a great inspirer, right? Um, I don't know about everyone else, right? But like for me, um, when I'm listening to music, right, and I'm like, maybe I'm just sitting in a spot, right, or like you know, you're on the bus or something, you're on your way to somewhere, right? Music is great to, you know, create like a vibe, right? Like I go into like music video mode, right? Where my imagination just, you know, starts to craft things on their own, right? You know, playing with the music, you know what I mean? I'm someone who kind of daydreams a lot, right? Um, I like throughout, like, you know, I thought about it, and, like, I didn't realize until um, like just this year that like I'm someone who actually daydreams like all the time, right? Some I'll just like lose focus and I'm like, you know, daydreaming about something, right? Usually when I'm listening to music, right, I get all my best ideas when I'm daydreaming listening to music. Okay, right? Like those two things, like they coincide with each other and they make something beautiful, right? Like a lot of my greatest ideas came from music, right? A lot of my paintings are derived from music, like things, imagery that I saw when I listened to the music, and I wanted to bring it into, you know, the real world, right? And you know, in like on that note, right? I kind of want to talk about the nature of um, music and art, right, and how they affect different senses, right? So um, I believe that art forms encourage you to feel things, right, to increase your sensitivity to like to feeling things, you know what I mean, to get you to, you know, react emotionally, or you know, in some kind of way, you know what I mean, right, to reach you, to make you appreciate your senses, right, to enhance your senses, right? So when you're listening to music, right, your ears open, okay, you're trying to listen to, you know, maybe the lyrics, maybe the music itself, right, and like it encourages you to open up those senses, right, and really pay attention to what you're listening to or what you're looking at, right? So I think all art aspires to be as beautiful as music, okay, right? And music aspires to be as beautiful as art, okay, is to the ears. You get what I'm saying, right? They play into one another, right? Vision and sound for the human are the most important senses that we have, right? And like, you know, most critical to like our survival, right? And so um art aspires to be the best thing to look at, okay? And music aspires to be the best thing to listen to, right? And you know, there's like a whole world in that discussion, right? But what you want to think about when it comes to your artwork, right, is that you want it to be as good as a song, right? You know what I mean? But the thing is that a song, right, like the art and music, they fulfill a different part of what you want. You know what I mean? Right? And they cannot fulfill each other's purpose, right? Which is the beauty of it, because because they're so pure in their medium. You know what I mean? That there is almost like there's no mixing. You know what I mean? Very little mixing between the two, right? And so, um, when you're listening to music, right? When you're listening to music, and you have a transcendental experience, right? When you have a experience where you're like, you know, you and the music, you're like your energies are harmonizing together, right? And you're really feeling it, and you're feeling like this, maybe a wave of emotion, right? Or something like that, right? Where you're like, yeah, like I feel something deep and personal with this music, right? You know what I mean? I feel like more people feel that than when they feel that with art, right? But the thing is that like that's what you want out of your art, right? You want someone to see something and feel something, right? And like, you know, let it enter their spirit, okay? And to allow, you know, the opening of the senses, right? So, um, I want to talk about how music is non-physical, okay, right? So music has a beauty, right, that moves through the air, right? It's not something that you can touch. It's not something physical, right? It's not something that you could see, feel, touch, or anything. You can only hear it, okay? So it's, you know, like I said, locked to that sense, right? The beauty of art, okay, is that it has those qualities of like, you know, something that could enter you, something that you could generate a feeling, right? But it is the first one that has been brought into this world, okay? When it's music, it's not part of the physical space, you know. I mean, it's like airwaves and shit like that, but you get what I'm saying, right? It's not here, right? You can't feel it, you know what I mean? You can't touch it, you know what I mean? It belongs, like, I would say that music has a much more ethereal quality to it because it is non-physical, right? It doesn't have dimensions, okay, right? And that's the beauty of music, right? It's ethereal. It's, you know, it's in the air, and as a result, it has a much easier time, like, you know, like to enter you, right? But art, in a very similar vein, is extremely important, right? Because it is the first time something like that has entered a physical space, right? You could see it. You could, you know, I guess you could theoretically touch it, though you don't want to, you know, you don't want to touch art, right? But it is there. Like, it is like, it takes a physical presence, right? You know what I mean? I guess you could argue digital or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, doesn't, you know, or, you know, this piece does because it's a physical piece. But you get what I'm saying. It enters a place where we can experience it, like on an earthly realm. You know what I mean? Right? And of course, I guess music you can because it's, you know, with your ears, but you get what I'm saying, right? There's no physicality to it, right? And so almost like to me, it's like a yin and yang, right? You know, there's one side where it's all like, you know, like it's all ethereal, you know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like like thoughts, right? Like reading a book, right? Use your imagination, right? I guess there's a physical book, but you get what I'm saying. It's like it's the ideas and stuff like that, right? Those things are not physical, right? But visual art, right? A statue, a painting, right? These are all physical things, right? And so art creates a bridge between those two realms, right? In a way that music cannot, right? And so that's why when you see, like, that's why I feel like music and art have always, you know, they've always been really great friends, okay? Because they can fulfill aspects that the other cannot, right? That's why we have things like music videos, right? Album covers, you know what I mean, right? To create some sort of semblance between the music, right, and the physical, okay? You know what I mean, right? And so when you work, okay, remember that your work is there to help create this bridge between the spiritual and the physical, right? In a way that, like, that music cannot, right? And that's what's like, you know, like, because, you know, I love music. Music is so important to me and everyone, right? But it is limited, right? in the same way that art is unlimited, because you can't just, art and then it's on the other side, right? But art is great because it takes a dip between both sides, right? And is that bridge between the ethereal and the physical, man. You know what I mean, right? Music is a smaller bridge, but it lands way more on the ethereal side, right? Because of its non-physical property, right? So, you know, combining the two, I think that's the real magic. You know what I mean? And that's where you get things like, film, right? Cinematography, things like that, right? And it's trying to combine two different art forms, visual and audio, right? But, art is the purest visual form of media, and music is the purest, like, ethereal part of media, right? And so these things are extremely important because of their purity, right? Art is pure visual, music pure musical, right? And music is purely ethereal, okay, right? That is their natures, right? And so that's why I'm trying to emphasize that, despite music's impact, right, despite how important music is, right, art is just as important, right? Because it creates, like I said, the start of a physical, existence, right? So, like, if you look at history, right, if you look at history, songs, they live through, one person singing to another, right? You know what I mean? Books last through writing, you know what I mean, or recitement to, like a story that is told, right? But art, okay, art actually, I feel like, if anything, lasts the longest out of all the mediums, right? Because, if you look at a museum, what's there? It's the art. It's the literal physical representation, right? It's a painting. It's a vase. It's something like a building. You know what I mean? And it's taken the ethereal and brought it into the physical, right? And now that it has a physical, like, container, something that exists, right? It can be preserved, right? And kept. You know what I mean? Music, maybe through writing and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, and of course nowadays, we have way more, like, things to preserve, but if you look at throughout history, one thing that's always lasted is art, okay? Music can be lost, right? I guess art also can be lost, but it's held in such a high regard that it's kept in places where, these things, are tracked and, hopefully, never stolen, but, things get stolen. It's just one of those things, but you get what I'm saying, right? There is a physical, like, the physical quality of art allows it to last longer than ethereal things, because ethereal, it'll disappear in the ether, you know what I mean, right? Get lost in the void, right? But art, because of its physical quality, can stay alive, right? And is, once again, the bridge between the spirit and the physical, right? So yeah, this has been long. This has been, like, going kind of, like, all over the place, and I'm fine with that, right? But I hope this video makes you look at music in a different way. I hope it makes you look at art in a different way, right? I hope it makes you, like, understand the more metaphysical qualities of art versus music, right? And how they have a role to play in each other's existence and to our physical versus ethereal enlightenment, right? You know what I mean? And, like, either way, what these things are trying to do is for you to start feeling the divine, okay? The other side, you know what I mean, right? And so, like, that's why, music allows you to get in there, right? So if you're someone who doesn't listen to music when you're drawing, right, you listen to podcasts or whatever, I encourage you to put on the tunes, man, okay? If you're having a problem getting into the rhythm, right? If your hardest thing is starting your artwork, right? Put on those tunes, listen in, tune in, right? Get into that rhythm and put that rhythm on the canvas, right? So I think we can end the video here, guys. Please, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like, hit the subscribe, check out my Prince of Patreon if you want to support the channel, consider becoming a channel member, right? Ring that bell for notification, all that bullshit. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks a lot.